Hello everybody, thank you for coming. My name is Chris Farmer. We've got an hour today, haven't we, to talk about a very important topic, which is how to get the best from yourself and others. How to get the best from yourself and others. This is an important topic today because we're focusing down on the emotions. Our topic for today is how to reduce fear and replace it with confidence. How to reduce fear and replace it with confidence. And as you probably agree, the world is full of fear right now, and it has a negative effect on people's peace of mind, on people's state of health, and the health of the economy. So what we're talking about today is a very important topic, and consequently there is a slight chance that I might overrun my hour because I want to make sure I get everything I need to get in. There's a slight chance I might go over maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I try not to, but I got a lot of material to get in, and I want to make sure I get this material across. So just be prepared for that, potentially a 5 or 10 minute overrun. I'm assuming that you've got the notes in front of you, either the paper notes, you've printed them off, or the electronic notes, you've got them on your computer. Alternatively, if you don't have the notes, it's not a disaster because we can just write scribble notes. If you've got a piece of paper and a pencil, you could just copy the notes down as we go. So I'm going to launch in this material, and we start from where we always start. We start with our question: how can we get the best from ourselves and others? And the answer to that was we learn new knowledge, we apply knowledge, and we gain knowledge in the form of concepts. And the first concept I gave you on this course was SOS, which is self, others and systems. We work on ourselves first, because once we worked on ourselves and improve our own skills, that gives us the ability to work on the people around us, and we can improve maybe their performance. And then if me and you, we are performing better, we can build better systems. And if we can build better systems, we can radiate to the whole planet and improve the planet. So, but we start where we stand. That was the first model we did. Second model we did was this one, the success formula. Now I've been using the success formula as the basis for most of my presentations. Purpose, plan, action, feedback, change. We said that success has identity, and it's based upon 5 words: purpose, plan, action, feedback, change. So on day 1 we did this, day 2 we did planning, day 3 we did how to give negative feedback, and on day 4 today we are doing how to manage your emotions through tough times. So what I'd like to do now is go into my pad and pick it up from where we were. Could you put me over please to the drawing pad, Lindsay? That didn't work. Thank you. Okay, do you remember this? This is where we were last week. We're talking about the success formula, and we were talking about how to give proper feedback. Do you remember that from last week? Well, we know from the success formula that life is not, as Rocky says, life is not all sunshine and rainbows. It can be a very mean and nasty place, if you remember that speech. And we said we've got that on our success formula as the negative part feedback. In other words, life often gives us setbacks, criticisms, defeats, upsets, disappointments, that type of thing, and it also requires that we change. But for the vast majority of people on the planet, criticisms, upsets, defeats, reversals, and change are all negative elements in the environment, and we respond negatively to them. But that causes a problem, because this is inherent in the success formula, inherent in life on planet Earth. So I'd like to put it to you the first new concept of today. It's called the self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's circular in nature. It goes like this. We all want better results. We all want life to get better. How would we do that? Simple answer: improve our actions. So if we improve our actions, we should get better results. It's self-evident. How can we improve our actions? 2 ways. We can gain knowledge and we can get an education. That's why we go to school, that's why we attend courses. I'm hoping you come on the course to gain knowledge with the intention that that will inform our actions, should get better results. It should be that simple, but it isn't. Because we are not only guided by what we know, we are also heavily influenced by how we feel. By how we feel. Our feelings affect our actions. That's probably agreed, isn't it? Our feelings, how we feel in any given moment, will affect our actions, irrespective of what we know or our educational state. So the next question is, where do your feelings come from? Answer: 2 places. Your mind and your body. Your mind and your body. Have you heard of the phrase, healthy mind, healthy body? From the old Greek adage, healthy mind, healthy body. Now, I'm not going to talk about the physiological aspect of this today. I'm going to talk about the psychological aspect. We're going to be talking about mind states today, not body states. Body state is a different seminar. But for today, we're talking about the mind. Here's a punchline. The mind here really references your thoughts. Your thoughts. I want to give you a punchline. Here it is. You feel whatever you think about. You feel whatever you think about. You don't feel what actually is. You feel what you think is. Your thoughts determine how you feel. You feel, your feelings are the results of your dominant thoughts. So if you think you're going to win, you'll feel confident. If you think you can't win, you won't feel confident. If you think you're in trouble, you'll feel stressed. If you think you're going on holiday, you'll feel excited. If you think they're lying, you'll feel annoyed. You feel whatever you think about. Underneath, if you're making notes, could you write the word beliefs? Now, this is effectively the same point. You don't feel what actually is, you feel what you believe to be. What you believe to be. Your belief system affects how you feel. Now, one of your most fundamental belief systems is your self-concept. So if you believe yourself to be a winner, you're going to feel terrific. If you believe yourself to be a loser, you won't. So how you feel about yourself is governed by your self-image, your self-belief system. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, if you are taking notes, is put a circle around these words here. Let's pick that colour. I'm going to make a super concept. It's built of major concepts. It's a major concept, massive concept, because it's built up of other big concepts. I want to book together all of your thoughts, feelings and beliefs and name it attitude. And name it attitude. The sum of all your thoughts, feelings and beliefs could be called your attitude. And the point here is your attitude affects your results because your attitude directly affects your actions. Can you see that by the diagram? Your attitude affects your results because your attitude directly affects your actions, and your actions affect your results. So by implication, your attitude affects your results. And then what happens then is that circle loops round and you start to think about your most recent results. So this becomes what I call a self-fulfilling prophecy. It can work for you or against you. It can work for you or against you. Meaning, if you think you're going to win, you will feel confident and that will affect your actions. If you think you're going to win, that will affect your feelings. You'll feel confident. If you feel confident, you act confidently. If you act confidently, that's going to positively affect your results. But if you're, say, a speaker, if you're a public speaker and you think you're going to mess it up and everyone's going to hate you, if you think that, then when you stand up to speak, you're going to feel nervous and almost already dejected. And if you feel nervous and dejected and then you start speaking, people will sense that and you will fail because you talked your way into it. Because this machine can work for you or against you, in a positive or a negative way. Now that's what I call the self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy. It works for you or against you. Now I've got a picture of the diagram that I've just drawn. It's in your notes. A little diagram I've just drawn, just a little, that one I've just drawn is on page 5. Can you see that? The self-fulfilling prophecy is the one I've just drawn at the bottom there. So the question is about attitude. Could you write this down if you're taking written notes? Could you write this down? We need to create and sustain a positive mental attitude, especially during tough times. I'll say that again so you've got time to write it down. We need to create and sustain a positive mental attitude, especially during tough times. Why underline the word especially? Now, why is it especially during tough times? Because that's when you need it most. Anyone can be positive if it's going really well. I mean, if you're on holiday, you've got a load of money in your back pocket, the sun is shining, everything's fantastic. Anyone can be positive. It's not hard to be positive when everything's going well for you. The question is, how strong can you feel when things aren't going well for you? Or even more, how strong can you feel when things are going against you? When you're butting up against disappointments and upsets and defeats and difficulties? How strong can you be under adverse conditions? Because it has a major effect on your ability to recover from the adverse conditions. Because if you're in adverse conditions and you mentally and emotionally lose it, you've got a double problem. You've got the original conditions in the first place, plus the fact you've mentally lost it, and you're now inefficient. You're not working correctly because your mind has gone offline. But if you can stay positive in difficult situations, it gives you the best chance possible of fixing the problem that is confronting you. So there's two problems. There's the external in reality problem, and there's the internal emotional problem, which we need to stay strong when it is weak on the outside. How do you do that? How would you do that? Well, that's the subject of my next 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I'd like to present to you a model that I'm going to call two things. The first name is going to be called mind control, and the mind that I'm controlling is mine, because I can feel that if I can control my mind, I can control how I feel. Putting it the other way, if I can't control my mind, I can't control how I feel, because feelings are governed from mind, you see. Your feelings are an emotional response to the basic premises you've got in your own mind. And then I'm going to call the same model conversation control, because once I've figured out my own mind and the way I feel, I then use exactly the same model to translate into language, which then I pour it out onto other people, you see, the positive stuff onto other people. So you fix yourself first and then you go out to the outside world. So this is mind control in here first, conversation control, talking to other people second. So I'd like to show you this model. Now I'm going to show you a diagram in the book, if I can find it. Could I ask you to go to page 8? Now the page 8 signifies an almost completed version of what I'm just about to draw, but I'd like to draw it in front of you so you can track my thought process and you can see how this thing works. What we're talking about is how thoughts affect feelings. How thoughts affect feelings. So therefore we must control our thoughts. How do you control thoughts? You control thoughts in the following way. You take everything that you're thinking about and put them on to two categories of thought. Now if you're thinking about something that's actually real, meaning it actually exists, it must exist in time. So this line up and down is a timeline. We break time into three categories: everything in the future, everything in the past, and everything in the present, now. So that's past, present, and now. Correction, past, future, and now. That's time sorted into three categories. And now we break the whole universe into two categories. Everything you think is good, everything you think is bad. So now I've got 5 characteristics: good, bad, future, past, and present. Let's look at this category of thinking. Past, bad. Past, bad. Now this is the person who gets into the habit mentally of going over and over in their mind all the bad things that have happened to them in their past. This is the person who, when they wake up in the morning and they regain their consciousness, their mind floods full of their narrative, which really boils down to a single line. I've had it bad in the past. That's what they say to themselves. I've suffered. Look at all my injuries, disappointments, injustice, defeats, bad luck, where people have let me down, the way my wife treated me, the way my parents treated me, the way my friends have let me down, the way my boss is always bullying me. And what they do is they fill their heads with all the things that come into the category of I've been treated badly in my past. Now let me ask you a question. If you are thinking predominantly about how you've been treated badly in your past, and by the way, that could have been yesterday in the meeting, how you were treated badly in the meeting yesterday, or it could be 2 years ago, it could be 10 years ago, it could be from your childhood. You were still thinking about how you were badly treated in your childhood, but you keep talking about it, thinking about it, going to therapy about it, and revisiting, going over the narrative. I call it playing the tapes again. But the basic principle is this: if you are thinking about how badly you've been treated in the past, what feelings are associated to that thought process? Well, here's the list. Anger, upset, bitterness, and revenge. What an ugly list. What an ugly list. Anger, upset, bitterness, and revenge. Now, I don't know if you know anyone who's like this, who's got into a narrative which they just can't get over. I've got a friend, and about 12 years ago, he went through a divorce, and he's still in, I don't mean he's actually in it, but emotionally he's in it. He hasn't let it go. So if you see him tonight at the gym, you'll say, how are you doing, Rich? And he'll say, I'm missing my kids. I'm missing my kids. She took my house, she took my money, she took my car, she took my kids. She left me for another man. And he's still raw, if that makes sense. I could sum him up in these two words: bitter and angry. Bitter and angry. He radiates bitter and angriness. Bitter and anger. And now that has become a part and an integral part of his performance. So when he goes for a job interview, he attends the job interview as a bitter and angry middle-aged man. A bitter and angry middle-aged man at the job interview. How well do you think he gets on at the job interview? Not well. So he doesn't get the job. And when you see him in the next day, you say, how did you get on with that job interview? He says, I didn't get it, did I? Now, what does the failure of the job interview do to his mind? Of course, it corresponds to his expectation. He just puts that in the bank as another example of how he's always treated badly, and he carries on. So that's the first category of thought I'd like to draw your attention to. I'm going to call that the angry zone. But we could call it bitter and angry. Now, that's never been my cup of tea. Psychologically, I've never been the bitter and angry man. But I don't mind admitting to you that up until the age of about 40, I lived here, as do many people now. The future will be bad. The future will be bad. The future will be bad. It's bad and it's going to get worse. Now, this is the predominant cultural norm, as far as I can tell, and it always has been. I mean, I was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But all through my life, there has been a constant theme from the media, from the politicians, from the cultural trendsetters, and it's this: a monster is coming, and unless you vote for me or buy my product, you're all going to die within 20 years. The basic narrative all the way through my life is, if we don't act now, we're all going to be dead within 5 to 20 years. It's always about 5 to 20 years. Now, the threat changes, but the narrative stays the same. Obviously, at the moment, it's COVID. We're all going to die. Before that, what was it? Climate change. That's still on the board, but it's gone back into the background because COVID's taken its place. Climate change. Before that, it was Islamic terrorists, and before that, it was the hole in the ozone layer. Before that, it might have been AIDS. Before that, it might have been the Russians. Before that, it might have been overpopulation of the planet. But the point is, there is always the fear message being pumped out by the media and politicians. Now you have to ask yourself, what is in it for the media and the politicians to pump out fear? Well, I'll leave that with you. I'm not going to get into that. What's it? I think that there's a benefit for the media and there's a benefit for politicians if they can maintain a fear narrative. And the fear narrative is based upon the basic premise that the future is going to get worse. The future is coming and it's going to be bad. And the only way you can stop it is to vote for me. Now, if I honestly believe that my future will be bad, how will I feel? Well, here's the words: fear, anxiety, worry, stress, even dread. My goodness, dread. I was talking to a friend of mine called Simon the other day, and he said, I dread the future. And I said, Simon, do you really mean dread, or are you just talking? Because for me, dread is a terribly strong emotion. He said, no, I mean it. I dread the future. I would never bring kids into this world the way the world is or the way it's going. I would never have kids now. He dreads the future. Now, I wouldn't say that I dread the future, never have, but I won't mind admitting to you that for many years I lived under the threat of anxiety and worry. Chronic, low-level anxiousness. That's where I was for about 30 years. I fixed it now. I don't get it now because I fixed it. But a lot of people are living under the threat of a bad future, and they live in fear, chronic anxiety, chronic worry, and it destroys their peace of mind. Now let's go to this one. The past was better, or the past was good, but for our purposes, this box means the past was better than today. The past was better than today. These are the people who are dissatisfied with today when they compare it to how it used to be in the good old days. Do you know these people? They love the good old days. They are nostalgic for what I call a mythical golden age. They want to go back to how it used to be before the changes. We want to go back to how it used to be before the COVID, or I want to go back to the 1980s, because that's when we had proper music. Proper music is Queen, not the rubbish you have nowadays. You see, that's the older guy speaking. Proper music is Queen, because we think that the best music was the music that we listened to when we were in our 20s, and for me, that's Queen. You see, so we kind of lock on to the good old days. And we look back and fondly, and we always, or not always, because it's not necessarily true, but the point is, it can be true, that people are dissatisfied with their current position because they're referring it to a golden age of the past. Golden age. And they become what I call dissatisfied. Dissatisfied with now because they're referencing a golden age in the past. Now this is slightly worrying because I'm meant to be talking about positive mental attitude. I'm 3/4 of the way through the model and it's all bad. Now here's my key point. There's only two places on this diagram that you can feel strong. There's only two places on this diagram that you can feel strong. It's called the now and the future will be good. The now and the future will be good. If you're making notes, could you draw that shape? That's the icon. The circle and the square. The now and the future will be good. Now this is the psychologically strong position. If you can say to yourself and give you sufficient reason to actually believe that today will be good and tomorrow will be good. Today will be good and tomorrow will be good. Today will be good, tomorrow will be good. Or if you can't manage that, this morning will be good, this afternoon will be good. This morning will be good, this afternoon will be good. For example, before I get in front of you, I've got to say to myself, This is going to be good. This is going to be future tense. This is going to be good. I'm going to be good. My delegates are going to be good. It's going to be a good presentation. Now, if I can convince myself that I'm going to be good, the material is good, my delegates are going to be good, we're going to have good numbers, good responses. If I can get myself to believe this before I get in here, how will I feel when you guys tune in? Well, here's the list. I'll be motivated. I'll be optimistic. I'll be energetic. I'll be confident. Now, if I was just to take those words, motivated, optimistic, energetic, confident, I could sum those words up in a single word: happy. 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 Happiness is a very complex emotion. It's a lot more than putting a smile on your face and telling a few gags. Happiness is deep-seated. Happiness is not a car. It's not a beautiful person on your arm. It's not an amount of money in the bank. It's not living in a nice house. Happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is a state of mind. Nobody can give it you. Nobody really can take it away, although they can have a damn good try. You are the creator of your own happiness, or you're not. That's the point. Happiness is a state of mind based upon the basic idea that today and the future will be better. If you don't honestly think that the future is going to be any good, you're going to feel worried. If you think the past was bad, you're going to feel angry. If you think the past was better, you're going to feel nostalgic and a faint sense of loss for those things that have now gone. You only feel strong in the present, and the future will be good. Now, I want you to notice that there's only one out of 4, because now and the future will be good is 1 unit here. So I'm making this a 4-unit model, not a 5-unit model. If you were to just drop a little mouse onto that diagram and let them run around at random, and that was a floor plan in a room, you see, and that you divided that room up into quadrants, and that mouse ran around at random, can you see if you are not in control of your thinking, you don't give it any second thoughts, you are doomed to be 3/4 not very happy. You're doomed by statistical chance. If you are randomized and you're not controlling how you think, you must be, over the long stretch, not very happy. You're going to be about 1/4 as happy as you could have been given the same set of circumstances if you'd controlled your mind better. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to pause my presentation. I've got effectively 4 different categories. I'm going to ask you to analyse your emotional state as it has been over the last, say, 3 months. Now I'm going to ask you to take all of your emotional energy over the last 3 months and distribute it to describe how you've been using your emotions over the last 3 months. In other words, how much fear have you experienced out of 100? How much anger out of 100, how much nostalgia out of 100, and how much optimism out of 100. Optimism being the future good, fear future bad, anger past bad, nostalgia past was better. So I'm going to pause my presentation for about 4 minutes. I'm going to ask you to write down 4 numbers adding up to 100 units, which describes to yourself how you've been feeling, in the broad brush sense, over the last 3 months. Thank you very much. I'm just interrupting your thoughts. I've got a page in the book on this, page 9. If you haven't found it, if you want to find it, it's on page 9. I've got this set out for you. Percentage of time in each category. Page 9. Okay, could you put me on? I think that's... Okay, I'm hoping that's sufficient time for you to introspect, put your numbers down. How worried have you felt over the last couple of months? How angry have you felt over the last couple of months? How good, how optimistic have you been feeling over the last couple of months? How nostalgic, wishing you could go back to how it used to be, have you been feeling over the last couple of months? Now, I'm wondering if there is anybody who would come online and divulge the contents of their innermost soul to the rest of us. So this is just a guesstimate, an estimate guesstimate of how you've been feeling over the last maybe 3 months. Summarize as 4 percentage numbers adding up to 100. Is there anybody who would come online?
Yeah, hi, this is Sorin.
Soren, hi, thank you.
Yeah, so from the first, how much fear, worry, anxiety, I have put a 10%.
Ooh, wonderful.
Anger, bitterness over the bad things that have happened, I put 30%.
30, 30.
Yeah, nostalgia, I have put 10%. And optimistic, 50%.
50%.
Yeah, and this rating I did before the training has started, because I have received this booklet 1 hour before, so I have put that rating before that time only.
I didn't hear the last thing you said about the booklet.
So this note I have received 1 hour before the training has started. So this rating I have done before you have given the entire
Oh, I see, because you
brief.
looked at the book before we came. Yeah, yeah, I understand. So you understood its significance before we got here.
Yeah,
Thank you. Well, that looks pretty good because you've managed to scrape together half happy. At least half happy.
Absolutely, I'm have
Now, the point I'd like to make here is a lot of people aren't even half happy. When David Cameron was the Prime Minister, he did a social trend survey in the UK. He wanted to know how happy were the population of the UK. So he did a massive social trend survey. And when they got the results back, they were shocked because the vast majority of people aren't happy by any means. And yet, when you look about it, we are the most privileged generation in the history of the human race. We've got more food than we can eat, most of us, in the Western world. We've got more cars than we can get on the drive. I've got more books on my bookshelf that I can read. I've got more weight in my garage than I can lift. We are the most abundant society ever in the history of the human race, and yet most of us are scared to death, or depressed, or mentally ill. So there's a lot of ill feeling out there because, well, 2 reasons. The cultural norm, in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this, but the cultural norm of politics and the media is to generate fear messages. And that has a non-stop drip feed effect on the psychology of the human race, and it affects everything from how you sleep at night to the world economy is governed by emotion. You see, the economy used to be held up with gold. It isn't anymore. Gold was taken away from the support of money, and now money is supported by confidence. Now, confidence supports a currency. If the confidence comes out of a currency, the currency collapses. If the confidence comes out of a bank, the bank collapses. If the confidence comes out of a government, the government collapses. Confidence is what holds up society, and when people systematically attack the confidence of the population, only bad things can happen. So we've got to be very careful that we don't lose our confidence to such a degree that we trigger the negative version of the self-fulfilling prophecy and we talk ourselves into danger. You see, we can talk ourselves into a recession and we can talk our way out of it again. Let me just ask for another person. Is there anyone else, just to make sure that we don't just have one set of numbers, just as a contrast, would anyone else give us their set of numbers for the way they have been feeling over the last 3 months? I think I saw a Shiv Singh's light come on. Shiv, are you still thinking of talking?
Somebody who...
Oh, somebody else will talk. Who will talk?
We've got
Nice and loud, please.
Puspendra.
Yes.
Anger is 10.
Oh, anger is 10. Sorry, I did that wrong. Anger is 10.
Worry is 30.
30.
Nostalgia is 20.
20.
Future 40.
40. 40. See, now that's an interesting number because now that's less than half happy. Less than half happy. Okay, so my theory is we should be able to muster half happy, guys. Probably more. Because life ain't that bad. We should be able to manage half happy with the resources that we've got available to us in the 21st century. In spite of all of its challenges, the human mind is capable of more than half happy. So now what I've got in front of me now is how you have been using your mind. I'm now going to change it into how should we use our mind? It's a different question. I'd like to throw up the next concept. The next concept is called the theoretical optimum balance. That, if you're making notes, could you write that down? The theoretical optimum balance. The theoretical optimum balance. Now the idea here is, in theory, there must be an optimum balance for these numbers. Because ideally we would want to be at more than half happy, like at least 51%, maybe 52%, maybe 60% happy as a general principle. Now we don't want to put all of our pennies onto optimism, because if you completely abandon fear, you see, you would crash your car. You have to be afraid up to a point. But beyond that point, fear is toxic. It destroys the soul, it destroys the thinking mechanism, it destroys people's peace of mind, it destroys the economy. So fear at one level is very beneficial. It's good to be afraid, keeps you safe. But beyond that level is counterproductive and toxic. Equally, anger can be good. There are certainly many times in life when anger is the appropriate response. You should be angry when you see an injustice. Any sense of injustice will cause people rightly to become angry. So anger is not a negative emotion, full stop. It's a negative emotion if it's overindulged in. Too much anger, too frequently, and for too trivial an occurrence, you see, is a bad thing, because now you end up as the angry, bitter man, you see, threatening to other people, and that will cause you to fail, and that will cause you to get angry, which will cause you to fail, which you get the idea. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Equally with nostalgia. Some nostalgia is good. It's okay to look at the photographs sometimes, but you don't spend all day looking at photographs of the good old days. That would be a waste of your time. And as we say, confidence we've got as a positive emotion, but even overconfidence could be overplayed. Because if you're overconfident, you'll crash your car on the way home because you'll be driving too fast, thinking, hey, don't worry, everything will be fine. So we're talking about the optimum, theoretical, perfect human. The perfect psychology, capable of every emotion, but in its right degree. You see, that's the answer. That's the question I'm asking you. So there is no correct answer to this. This is a theory, and each one of us now will have our own ideas about how much fear, anger, optimism, and nostalgia each one of us should have. So I'm going to pause again. This is more theoretical now. You're projecting the perfect person, the perfect psychology. I'll pause. Can I ask you to jot down some numbers? 4 numbers adding up to 100.
Page 11.
Yeah, page 11. No, we're on. This is should. This is page 12 now. Okay. Shall we go then? Okay, thank you. I think that's probably sufficient time for a little bit of thought. Now, there is no right answer here. It's only what you think. So who would come online, think they've got the theory for the perfect human psychology? It's going to be 4 numbers adding up to 100, which describes perfectly poised humans. Who would come online and give us their thoughts? Preferably a voice would be nice. Is anybody going to talk to me, giving me their ideas? Oh, we got somebody writing it down. Nice and loud, please, Vince.
Oh no, it's just he's ticked it. Torin. Does Torin want to talk?
Oh, Torin, do you want to talk?
Sorin.
Anesta? Anesta?
Anesta. No, she's there.
You're there? Can we hear you? I'm hoping someone will either write. Sorin?
No, I've got anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Oh, nice and loud, please.
yeah, this is Sorin again. So for bad future, I think 5, because I cannot control my future, so I cannot think on that. So that's 5. Bad past, what has lost, I cannot correct it, so 5. Past good nostalgia, I think 15. And for future, I should be optimistic and inspirational at 75.
Wonderful. What a wonderful set of numbers. What a wonderful set of numbers. Hey, if you could maintain that, you're 3/4 happy most of the time. Not because the world is smiling at you, not because you've got £1 million in the bank, not because you're married to some fantastic film star, but because you are self-generating your own happiness by being conscious of your consciousness, if that makes sense. You're conscious of your consciousness. You recognize when you're off track. Now, for me, off track normally means afraid, worried, anxious. That's the way I was brought up. The way I was brought up was to worry about the future. That was the family trait. That is also in the UK the cultural trait. And I can see that the vast majority of the people walking around are more worried than they are happy, you see. And I was like that up until the age of about 40, when I managed to figure this diagram out. And once I understood it, it took me about 4 minutes to understand it, but about 2 years to implement it, because my tracking was out. And I have to keep reminding myself that worry is not my natural state. It's a habitual state, but it's not my natural state. I'll say that again because that was a good line. Worry is not your natural state. It might be your habitual state, but our natural state is happiness. If you look at a kid, they're happy. Why? Because they don't worry about the future. They are thinking about their holiday, you see. So kids tend to be happier than adults because they haven't learned to be miserable yet. It takes a lot of training to learn to be really miserable. Now, and it takes training to not be as well. Now, I'm going to give you when I first did this about 12 years ago, I used slightly different numbers. I'm only putting this up not to make the others wrong, but simply to just say that there is no one set of numbers. I did 70, 10, 10, 10. That's what I did. 70, 10, 10, 10. And I think in the notes we've printed another set of numbers, which is 60, 20, 10, 10. I think that's, if you read the article in the notes, I think that's the numbers that we put in the notes. I've got that 60, 20, 10, 10 by looking at what most people say most of the time. When I do this in front of audiences, 60, 20, 10, 10 seems to be like the average thought process on what would be the perfect person. Now, how do you use this? You use this in a number of different ways. Firstly, to become more aware of your own consciousness, because most of us are not random. We don't move around by random chance. We are habitual. So there are some people who are habitually angry. Mr. Angry, he's habitually angry. You can rely on it. Next people are habitually worried. They're anxious, they're worried, they're fearful for the future. A lot of people fall into that category. Maybe even millions, maybe even billions of people fall into the habitually worried category. Some people are habitually nostalgic. I know two, habitually nostalgic. They want to get into a time machine and go back to how it was when they were young. And a much smaller number are habitually optimistic, happy, motivated towards the future good. Now that is a matter of mental choice. Once you make it a choice, you make it a habit, and if you're over a period of time, you can habitualize yourself to your new standard, if you will. But you have to know what it is you're doing. You have to know what it is you're trying to do. Now I'm going to give you a sentence. If you want it, could you please write it down? Here it comes. I will take control of the focus of my mind and direct it towards today and the future good. I'll say that again. I will take control of the focus of my mind and direct it towards today and the future good. I call that the twin target. I will take control of the focus of my mind and direct it towards today and the future good. Now, I've got good at this over the last 10 years, maybe more. I have now perfected the art of, irrespective of outside circumstances, you can pretty much rely on me to be a happy guy. I'm a very stable individual. Stable in the positive sense. For the first 40 years of my existence, I was stable on the worried side of the line. You could guarantee that I was slightly anxious. So I'd have little diseases of anxiety, like little flakes of skin, little itches and rashes. I was a chronically anxious individual, and that showed itself in my physique, you see, because it does, because mind and body are one system. So if you'd have met me in my 30s, you could see I was anxious. Now, in my 50s, I'm not anxious at all, even though we're in big trouble. But with the COVID and everything else. So, how do you get out of trouble? You keep your mind straight and you apply the success formula. You don't lose your courage. You don't over worry. Of course, you've got to worry some, but don't over worry. Okay, that's the end of that piece. Now I'm going to start the next piece. It's going to be called Conversation Control. Conversation Control. I take everything I've said so far about mind and I now translate it into my language. Meaning, if I lived with you or I worked with you every day, I think I could get the reputation in your place of work for being one of those people who can raise the spirits of those around them. I think I could gain the reputation of being one of those people who can raise the spirits of people around them. I break people into three categories. Those who can raise your spirits, those who can't, and those who can depress you. Do you know there's three types of people according to this? There are people who can raise your spirits. Now, I hope you've got somebody who can raise your spirits in your life. Everybody needs one. There are many people who can't raise your spirits. They're not equipped. They don't know how to do it. They can't even do it to themselves, yet alone you. They can't raise your spirits. That's the vast majority of people. And there is a third group that falls into the lower category, which is that these are people who make you depressed. If you're with them, they either scare you, they make you anxious, or they make you angry, or they make you wish you could go back into a time machine and disappear. So, of the three types of person, you can choose which one you want to be simply by changing your habitual habit patterns. So I'm going to give you another statement. If you like it, could you jot it down? It's got the phrase, a source of strength to the others in it. Here it comes. In order to become a source of strength to the others, in order to become a source of strength to the others, I will take control of my conversation and direct it towards now, the future good, and success formula. Now, the future good, and the success formula. Now I'm referencing the success formula. If you were here with me on day one, we finished on success formula questions, if you remember that. The 8 success formula questions. If you weren't here, look at the video. But the success formula fits into future good, obviously. We're using the success formula to make our future better. So I've got 3 categories of thought. I'm going to talk about what's happening today, I'm going to talk about the elements of the success formula, and I'm going to talk about reasons to be optimistic. There's plenty of reasons on this planet to be optimistic when you look around us, when you look at the development of technology, when you look at how connected we are now. There's millions of reasons to be optimistic, and we don't have to focus on those smaller number of reasons to be pessimistic. So I'm going to call that conversation control. Got one more piece to go and then we're finished. The next one is called conversation control other people. Conversation control brackets other people. So we've been talking about our own minds, then we've been talking about our own conversations. I'm going to ask you now to judge other people's conversations. I'd like you to be aware of the content and the category of thought which is expressed in other people's conversations. Imagine you go into the office, you close your eyes and you listen to what's being said. Instantaneously, you can tell what kind of office atmosphere you've just walked into. It will be one of four types. It will be a worried office atmosphere. It will be an optimistic office atmosphere. It will be an angry office atmosphere. It will be a nostalgic, I wish we could go back to how it used to be type of conversation. There are fundamentally four categories of thought, fundamentally four categories of conversation, and fundamentally four categories of office atmosphere. So what you do is that you walk into the office, you sense, meaning listen to what people are saying, and then you step in. So I'd like to give you another statement. If you're ready, could you get ready to write this down? Here it comes. I will listen to the conversation of others. No, let's put it this way. I will listen to other people's conversations, and I will put a limit on them talking about the bad future, bad past, and good old days. I listen to the other people's conversation around the breakfast table, in the office, in the meeting, and I'm going to put some kind of strategic limit on them talking for too long about fear, talking for too long about anger, talking for too long about wishing they could go back to how it used to be, and you put a stop on those three, and when you think you've reached the point of limit, you would transfer the conversation from the three negatives to the one positive, if that makes sense. So the statement is, I will listen to their conversation and put a limit on them talking about the bad future, bad past, good old days. Now I've got 5 minutes to do something which in a course we'd spend more time on. But I'd just like to move to the next stage. What is the obvious question that we have to answer now? Here's the question that we need to now answer. By what means can we change the focus of the negative conversations and transform that conversation into a positive? Remember, there are 3 types of negative: fear, anger, nostalgia. There are 3 types of negative, 1 positive, optimistic. The vast majority of the time people are in the negative. By what means can we turn negative conversations, disrupt those negative conversations, and transform them into something which may be more productive, i.e. a future will be good, success formula type conversation? I'll pause my presentation, see if we can get some answers from you.
Fuzama has left a message on here.
Yes, please.
Self-affirmation and positive self-talk.
Okay, so somebody's just, what was the name of the person?
Fuzina.
Could you speak louder, please?
Fuzina.
Fazina writes,
Self-affirmation and positive self-talk.
self-affirmation and positive self-talk. Thank you very much. Self-affirmation. Now, this is actually an answer to a different question. This is how to keep yourself positive. In other words, this is what I was talking about earlier that I have to do to me. Before I come in front of you, I have to self-affirm. I have to say, oh, I'm going to be really good. I'm going to be very well organised. I'm going to present well. And I affirm myself so that when I stand in front of you, my nerves don't overtake me, you see, because I'm feeling more confident, because I've talked myself into it. That's a good point, but I'm not asking that question. I'm asking the question, how are you going to affect other people's conversations? What are you going to say to other people to shift their conversations out of the negative and into the positive? Has anyone got any notes on that question?
I think positive thought will come only from the if you have you read good quality books and
Are you saying positive books?
yes, good quality books, positive books.
Yes. I got a
So
phrase
you
here.
should.
Leaders are readers.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen that leaders are good readers.
So you might, if you see somebody who's habitually worried, you might buy them a book. There's plenty of good books out there. Susan Jeffers' Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. There's some terrific literature out there. Some of it's pop psychology, some of it's more serious. You'd have to pick the right book for the right person. Some people like pop psychology, like Tony Robbins. Other people would not like Tony Robbins. They would like something more serious. But it's a good answer. If you can lead people to the right literature, so they're not reading the newspapers, they're reading good literature which would stimulate positive thinking in that person's mind, and that can be a very positive thing.
Yeah.
Have you got any more? Has anyone got any more?
Here we are, we've got
Nice and note, please.
Charmaine. Taking control of the conversation, I will direct it now with a future good and success formula.
Now, if you were with me on day one, you learnt the 8 success formula questions. What is the goal? What is our plan? What are our priorities? How will we know that whether we are succeeding or not? What is going well? What is not going well? In relation to what is not going well, what adaptive changes do you think we should be making? And in relation to what is going well, what can we make even better? Now, those 8 questions from day one slot nicely in here. Okay?
Here we got Fuzina.
Fazina?
It says focus on the present.
That's a good answer. Focus on the present. Bring them back from the future and drop them right in the now. Because if you remember, our model was now and the future will be good. Now is a perfectly respectable and good answer. Bring them back to what's going on now. So you say to the people in effect, look, I can understand you're worried and I can understand why you're so fearful about the future. I get it. But let me ask you a question. What can we be doing now which can make all the things that you've been talking about not happen to us? I mean, they might happen to other people, but that future is not guaranteed. It might not happen to us if we act now, you see. So you draw that little circle where you're standing in the now, and you say, we need to be making our future a better place, and the way to do that is to act now. So let's stop talking about how frightened we are, and let's start talking about what we can do today to make this company, this family, this relationship better than it is. You see? And you drive that conversation out of the 3 negatives into the positives, and you keep it there for whatever percentage of the time you think is the correct. For me, it's 70%. Other people say 75. Other people say 60. But for the point is, the vast majority of the time, your thinking and language presupposes that today and the future will be good. You accept the possibility of bad futures and you act accordingly. You accept that you've been treated badly in the past, you learn your lessons and you move on. You recognise that Queen were a great band, but there's plenty of great bands nowadays. You don't have to keep listening to the old stuff, you see. So, that was my presentation. We've got two models, the self-fulfilling prophecy and the mind control, conversation control grid. If you want to remember it, the easiest way to remember it is the circle and the square. If you just, when you're in meetings, draw that. If you're going to get a tattoo, put that on the back of your hand. Now and the future will be good. Put that as a tattoo on the back of your hand and remind yourself that that's true. If you make it true, because we live in our own personal reality up to a certain point. Emotionally, we live in our own personal reality. Now, coming to an end, thank you very much. But when we come back next time, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Because if you remember, the success formula starts on goals. What is it? Remember, purpose, plan, action, feedback, change. Do you remember that from day one? So I'm going around in a loop. I'm finishing where I'm starting. Next week we're going to finish our presentations back where we started, right at the beginning of the success formula. We're going to be talking about what is your purpose in life, what are your goals, because goal setting is the start of all achievement. I want to thank you for giving me an hour of your time. I did overrun slightly. I hope that was okay. Thank you for giving me your thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll see you in a week from now to talk about goals. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Soren.